Interesting. The three brought to the hospital, Huimi Kayahara and Karen Hinagami were declared DOA. Fortunately, Kanetori's slash in the back had been no cause for concern. God damn it. The murderer kills himself, Huyumi gets murked, and Kohane gets off scot-free. This ending's been like the worst one yet. I'd rather get fucking decapitated. Yukiko Kayahara ended up in the hospital to receive therapy for the trauma of witnessing her mother's murder. Oba Girls Academy, having served as the involuntary stage of the crime, was temporarily closed out of consideration for the students' mental health. The police charged the deceased Karen Hinagami as the culprit behind the recent string of murders. Meanwhile, Hinagami Pharmaceuticals rapidly fell into the red after rumors that they had had a hand in the crime started floating around. That, compounded by the death of chairman Hideyomi Hinagami, resulted in the company's liquidation and disappearance from the business world. Tomoyuki Matsuki, the man formerly known as Aito Hinagami, left Tokyo at roughly the same time. Witnessing his sister's suicide and learning she'd been a murderer completely ruined all the improvement he'd made, leaving his mental state even worse than before. The man who'd lost his hometown had declared that he didn't want to stay in Tokyo another second longer. In hindsight, I believed we should have forced him into the psych ward, even if it meant dragging him in there, kicking and screaming. As for the other case I was working, Shin Katsuragi's trail went completely cold. Analysis of the manuscript provided by the publisher proved that the Sheep of Purgatorio had been written by someone else entirely. We concluded it had likely been done by a copycat who'd stolen his pen name. Meanwhile, it was the police's opinion that Shin Katsuragi, Shinji Mamiya, had died. In other words, I'd lost all my leads regarding Tokuchiki's whereabouts. However, I had no intention of giving up the search. I was determined to keep looking for her, even if it took the rest of my life.
Kayahara-san no yousu wa doudai?
I asked Yukari that question when she brought me coffee after dinner.
今のところ大きな問題は出ていません。
記憶は戻っていないのか？
ええ。茅原さんの中ではずっと入院していることになっているようです。
Oh Lord. Meaning she likely didn't remember her time at the Blessed Congregation either. But that was for the best, really. There were plenty of things out there better left unknown. Besides, the Blessed Congregation had already collapsed due to the death of Tokihiro Oribe. Following that incident, the rest of their top brass had vanished without leaving behind so much as a clue to their whereabouts. Supposedly the police were after Keigo Utsuki. However, none of that was my concern anymore. If anything, the end of the Blessed Congregation was a cause for celebration, seeing as it meant Kyoko was now free of her debt. Speaking of which, Kyoko was already up and about, getting ready to reopen Moonworld. I took a sip of the coffee Yukari had served me.
やっぱり一緒に暮らした方がいいと思うがな。
何がですか？
Yukari cocked her head.
いや、なんでもない。
私は京子さんもいて賑やかな方が好きですけれど。
わかってるんじゃねえか。
コーヒーを飲みながらの独り言でしたからね。
たく。
I gulped down the rest of my Joe.
お前だってマサキのこと気に入ってただろ？あいつがいなくなって寂しいんじゃないのか？
寂しいのは確かですけれど、そういうのはまだよくわかりません。
Yukari shook her head. Seriously? Given her age, I figured she'd have a crush or two by now.
まあ、他にいい男は星の数ほどいるだろうから、そう落ち込むなよ。
Except Yaginuma. Especially not Yaginuma. God forbid she ever took a liking to that guy. Yeah, also, he's a lot older than her. God. Not everyone wants to bone high schoolers like you do, Reiji.
女心というものを理解していませんよね。
You could have heaved a weary sigh.
理解していたらこんなに苦労してねえよ。
それもそうですね。
Yukari smiled. Neither of us exactly had much call to smile these days, nor would we for a while. However, if it meant reclaiming our old lives, piece by piece, then we had to keep living, no matter how much we'd lost. Game over. Alright, load up the same file. Once again, not gonna tell her. Do a quick little skippity skip skip. Skippity skip skip. I said fucking skip, you fuck. God. But this time, instead of actually going to the school and being involved in the altercation, we're gonna go to Kichijoji Station. Guess something goes down over there. Yeah, all that goes down. Masuki sees the bars. Fortunately, they were bolted shut. Oyumi's been circling the grounds. You say this is unread, but I call bullshit.
裏口の方から入れそうね。
Yep,
本
back
当にこ
door.
こに。
で、
For a moment, he goes swearing he's seen something moving in the second floor window.
待ってく。
We've seen all this. Thank you. The pair wandered the desolate hallways. The only sound was the floorboards.
2階は
Uh-huh.
あっち。
自分が先。
Masuki grabbed Huyumi's
でも
arm. Wouldn't be long before you reach the classroom. Okay, so this time they don't see the figure standing in the doorway, but they still end up here. Still, the door was
行き
shut.
ます。
After quickly checking for guards, he quietly snuck over to the classroom and speedily slid open the door. No sooner had he done that than a foul stench lay havoc to his senses. It only took a second to pinpoint its origin. The dark figure was crouching at the center of the room, surrounded by desks that had been carelessly shoved aside. Lying before them was a corpse. Its abdomen had been sliced open, its guts spilling out like a bowl overfilled with spaghetti. The dark figure turned around in response to Masuki's arrival.
ニコ。
The figure wore a demonic mask. They were identical to the oracle Masuki had seen at the festival over a decade and a half ago.
ユキコ。
Mimi shrieked as she stepped inside. Her eyes were fixed on a girl kneeling in a corner of the room, Yukiko. And that body must be... The oracle made their move the second Masuki looked away. Pushed a desk toward Masuki and charged at
冬美
Huyumi.
さん。
The oracle swung a dirk. Huyumi veered to the side. Masuki catapulted over the desk, tackled the oracle from behind. Masuki grabbed... So, what, in every iteration of this fucking ending, Huyumi just keeps getting her fucking throat sliced? Only this one, Kohane's actually dead.
冬美さん。
He looked up to find Huyumi collapsing against Yukiko, her neck gushing blood.
ユキコ。
Yukiko shook her mother over and over, paying no heed to the blood seeping into her clothes. Toji burst
何
in.
があった。
She wasted no time. Shit.
けど。まさき。今抑えた。
The son of a bitch.
その
Keep him
鳥
there.
居小羽か。むごいな。
We didn't make it. If only we got in here sooner.
警察を呼ばざるを得ないな。
Toji surveyed the roroom before realizing she was the only one free to look for a phone.
it's
Tie him up on it. Wait a minute, that's my sister.
か。
Uh-huh.
ことき。
Can I skip this bit? Even this section's been unread. I don't believe
警
you.
察。
Doji left. Masuki cradled Karen's body. Why? Why would you do this? Hung his head. Doji returned. Alright, hospital time. And so it was that the case ended with the suspect's death. The final victim, Kane Tori, was discovered with her abdomen sliced open and a clay doll sitting next to her, moments away from securing a new home within her. As a result, everyone agreed that her murderer, Karen Hinagami, had been behind the recent string of murders. Yukiko Kayahara fainted from the shock of seeing her mother Huyumi murdered right in front of her and was consequently sent to the hospital. By the time she woke up, she'd forgotten everything and started acting like a little girl. Doctors believed that she hadn't temporarily mentally regressed to protect her mind, but rather created a personality based on her childhood self and switched with that. Dissociative disorder, in other words. Snowflakes slowly glid down from the sky. Sparrows had assembled at the windowsill, pecking at millet grains.
かわいいわね、お兄ちゃん。うん、そうだね。
Oh. The siblings leaned forward and watched them from atop a bed.
こっちがお兄ちゃんかな。
Yukiko pointed to the larger sparrow.
じゃあ、こっちは妹なのかい？ええ、そうよ。私たちと一緒なの。
Yukiko sat up in bed and looked out the window. A group of sparrows crowded on the windowsill flew off in surprise when a lump of snow slid off the roof.
お兄ちゃん、鳥さんが飛んでいっちゃった。
Yukiko turned around. There was no one there. And yet she kept going on and on regardless.
お兄ちゃんが驚かすからよ。ダメじゃない。
Yukiko pouted.
え？でも、私は何もしてないわ。
Yukiko continued conversing with thin air. Yukari watched the whole thing unfold from a chair in the corner of the room. Oh. Her heart shredding to pieces all the while. Her friend was now living in the past. She had returned to when she was in the orphanage, when when she had her brother and friends. Back to when she knew nothing of the woman who was to be her mother. It seemed the trauma of witnessing Fuyumi die had driven her mind to pretend she'd never existed. The sheer tragedy of it all tore Yukari apart.
Yukiko.
Yukari, unable to hold back any longer, spoke up.
お姉ちゃん
It seemed Yukiko hadn't noticed Yukari until then. She tried to get out of bed, but Yukari held up a hand and trudged over to her instead.
お姉ちゃん今日も来てくれたのねええ
Aww.
お兄ちゃんも嬉しいでしょ
Yukiko spoke to a random direction again.
そうね
Yukiko grinned innocently. She rewound her time, believing absolutely nothing had happened to her.
お兄ちゃんも遊びたいって何するトランプカルタそうね
God damn it.
何をして遊びましょ
We're
うか
making Yukari cry, you sons of bitches. Yukari donned a brave smile, but couldn't stop the tears from trailing down her cheeks.
お姉ちゃんどこか痛いの
Yukiko shot her a concerned look.
うん大丈夫
Yukari embraced Yukiko. She didn't want her friend to see her cry, otherwise Yukiko would believe it was all her fault. Thus Yukari stifled her sobs and looked away, hugging Yukiko until her tears ran dry. Man. Fuck. God, man. Quit making Yukari cry. You're fucking me up, dude. This blows. Ooh, interesting. So this next bad ending comes from the same save point. Alright. But this time we do tell her, but we don't go to the school. This time we take a trip over to Moon World instead of the academy. Okay. Unfortunately, they were bolted shut and gave them no purchase.
そこにかじりついていても
Yeah, we've already seen this. But you're gonna say I haven't seen it, okay.
裏口は
Back door's open, security guard.
行くぞ
Let's do this. Pretty much what we've seen before. This time, I'm guessing we're too late.
こちらです
Yep,
巡回
the guard. Everall greeted them atop more dark
教
hallways.
室
ええ
自分が先に
Oski stepped ahead of his
青木さんはゆ
companions.
かりさんを守ってくださいわかった
You better fucking protect Yukari. I don't even care if it's a bad ending. You don't fucking kill off Yukari. That's just a no. Ducked down, didn't hear so much peep. Honestly, it made him more nervous. Trespassers. Plus, the only conceivable place Yukiko and Kohane could meet, so it wouldn't do. There he peeked. His eyes widened when he saw what was by the window.
どうした
Musk held out his hand to Toji when the latter started scurrying over. Can't have Yukari seeing what's on the other side of this door. We just can't. The classroom was devoid of life, in the worst possible meaning of the phrase. So if you go to Kichijoji Station, you catch her in the middle of the act. But if you tell Yukari and then go to Moon World, you show up after the act's been completed. Muskie covered his mouth. Sour bile welled up in his throat. Kohane Tore was there by the window, stained red from the waist down. Blood pooled on the floor beneath her, expanding with each drop that trickled down from her toes. Her abdomen was unnaturally swollen.
ヒンナ様の叩き
There was no mistaking it. Kohane was the fifth victim in the series of murders that begun with Maya Kamizono. Toji raced over to Masaki once he exited the classroom,
中は
but her voice died in her throat the moment she saw the look on Masaki's face.
彼女を絶対に中へ入れないようにしてくれ
Toji entered the classroom. Masaki trudged over to where Yukari was waiting.
まさきさん
ここから先はダメだ
Masaki felt ready to puke with each syllable he uttered.
何が
ダメだ
That was all Masaki could say. He couldn't possibly bring himself to tell her the truth, thus he simply gripped her arm firmly in lieu of an explanation. Perhaps he gripped too hard, though, as the act elicited a wince out of Yukari. Nevertheless, Masaki still had no intention of letting go or telling her.
わかりました
Yukari simply nodded and hung her head. Time quietly passed by. Eventually, Toji exited the classroom.
警察を呼ばなくてはならんな。
あの、
まさき、彼女を先に外へ連れて行ってくれ。
Toji interrupted Yukari and issued an order to Masaki.
わかりました。
There was no way he could argue.
誰が亡くなっていたのですか？
一人だけだ。それが誰なのか。
まさきさん。
行こう。後で教えるよ。
Masaki left the school with Yukari still in his grasp, knowing he had to distance her from the classroom as soon as possible. So what happened to Yukiko? Oh, interesting. We get to continue into a new day, huh?
遺体で発見された鳥居小羽の引き取られる前の姓は吉野。実母は吉野緑。
I silently listened to Yaginuma as regret devoured me from the inside out. How did the killer find the real bridal candidate? Regardless of the answer, it was all my fault she died. Should have just hidden her in a safe place instead of trying to pull off some elaborate scheme.
過ぎたことを悔やむな。まだ犯人が残っている。
Toji tried to comfort me. However, reassurances fell on deaf ears.
その犯人なのですがね。
彼女が
鳥居小羽が彼女を呼び出したのですよね。
妥当なものかよ。
もちろん分かっていますよ。しかし同行していたと思われる茅原由紀子が失踪している以上。
So he said, but if she'd really been present at the scene of the crime too, there left little hope of a positive outcome when it came to her present status.
先輩は雛神カレンを被疑者だと考えているのでしょう。
ああ。しかし証拠がない。
戦前であればそれでも拘束して自供させてやればよかったのですがね。
貴様は戦後でもそれをやりかねん。
Toji glared at Yaginuma.
若かった時であれば手段は選ばなかったでしょうが、今は立場というものがありますからね。
Yaginuma shrugged.
というわけで先輩、そちらはそちらで証拠を見つけてきてください。
簡単に言ってくれる。今まで証拠が見つからなくて右往左往していたんだぞ。
The phone on the desk suddenly shrieked.
はい、捜査一課。なんだと？わかった、すぐに行く。
どうした？
Toji raised an eyebrow after Yaginuma hung up.
いや、まだ確証の持てない情報だから説明するわけにはいきません。
おい、柳沼。
Toji seized Yaginuma's shoulder,
お引き取りください。
and yet he refused to back down. Toji let him go.
先輩もお願いします。
I had no choice but to do as he asked after seeing him act so unnaturally polite. We dropped by Hinagami Pharmaceuticals' office in Yotsuya after leaving the MPD.
何をするつもりだ？
証拠を見つけなければならないだろう。
やめておけ。お前が傷害罪で捕まるのがオチだ。
彼女しかあのリストを目撃できる人間はいない。
逮捕する証拠としては難しいな。
その通りさ。状況は明らかに彼女が犯人だと告げている。
しかしこれでリストに載っていた人物は全て殺されてしまったのだろう。
そう相手が思ってくれていればいいんだが。
The truth was, there was still one more target out there. Yu Hutami, the one whom Yuki Kirimura had been mistaken for. The killer had brutally murdered her old friend and family servant, so there was no doubt in my mind she'd do the same to Yu the moment she discovered the mix-up. Hence why I couldn't let that slip to anyone.
やりきれないな。
Doji heaved puffs of steam with her curse.
まったくだ。
Just then, a shiny black BMW parked in front of the office. Karen, walking out to meet it seconds later. She shot us a look before getting into the back seat.
声をかけなくていいのか？
今は何も話すことがないからな。
I watched as the car drove off. Just knowing that we were keeping an eye on the place should have been enough to shake her. Much as I hoped that it caused her to slip, I doubt she'd be committing any new crime that she believed her goal accomplished.
彼女も出て行ったことだし。
Toji and I entered Hinagami Pharmaceuticals. Masaki flopped onto the sofa and stared at the ceiling. He lost the will to do anything after seeing Kahane's corpse. Furthermore, his mind was tormented by an endless stream of whispers claiming that anything he ever tried to do would ultimately be for naught. As a result, whatever confidence he'd had that could last in this job was shot. However, he had nowhere else to go either. Will I just waste away in this room? Suddenly the agency door swung open. Mosky lifted his head to see who'd entered.
兄様。
彼どうしたんだ。
兄様を迎えに来たのです。こんなところでくすぶっていてはいけません。
Karen grabbed Mosky's arm and forced him to his feet.
参りましょう、兄様。お部屋も以前使われていたところを用意いたしました。絵の道具もそのままに。
Oh yeah? You just think you're gonna get your happy ever after fucking your brother? Nasty bitch. Mosky struggled to process what Karen was saying as she dragged him along.
いや待ってくれ彼。
ですから迎えに来たのですよ。
だから俺はひな神に。
それでも構いません。私と一緒にいてくだされば。
彼
とにかく兄様のご懸念はすべて晴らしております。
分かったよ。
Muskie nodded. Starting a new life with Karen didn't sound half bad. Sounds awful. After all, the alternative was growing mold in this office. They had no idea why she was doing this. At least she wasn't taking him back to the Hinagamis. Muskie found himself back in his old apartment. There'd been no tenants since he departed, meaning everything had been left completely untouched.
絵は描けそうだね。
For a moment, he pondered how long it had been since he last wielded a paintbrush.
兄様はここでご自由にお暮らしください。
If nothing else, this place might at least change the scenery I so desperately need.
ありがとう。
そんな家族として当然のことをしたまでです。
Karen blushed and looked away.
ですから兄様はずっと。
Muskie thought her request
分
over
かったよ。
and nodded, realizing he didn't have a reason to refuse for the moment. A giant bag was dragged from the clinic onto a stretcher and loaded into a police truck.
かないまへんな。若い娘が亡くなってまうのは。
Natsume popped a cigarette between her lips.
上は自殺で型をつけるそうです。
Oh, Yukiko? Yaginuma presented her with his lighter.
うちは断定してません。
Natsume dragged on her cigarette.
バルビツール酸系睡眠薬を服用して死亡したのは確かですが。
彼女には通院歴がありました。睡眠薬を手に入れていてもおかしくはない。
なんや、ヤギ沼藩は自殺と思ってへんみたいですな。
僕の判断なんてものは何の役にも立ちませんよ。鳥居小羽の殺害に関しても
その前の事件は
彼女に全てを押し付けようとしていますね。富山の件はこちらに関係のないことと片付けるつもりですよ。
So in the other two endings, they correctly pinned Karen because they actually reveal her identity. But in this one, Karen just gets away with it. Like, oh, well, Yukiko probably murdered Kohane, which means she probably murdered all the other ones. Also, the stuff going on in Toyama was completely unrelated.
なんとかなりまへんの。
鳥居小羽が殺害された時点で僕は捜査班の管理官を外されていますからね。だからこうして直接聞きに来たんじゃありませんか。
Yaginuma lost his command, Eesh.
そういですか。
Natsume shrugged.
ほいでも諦めるおつもりはありまへんの。
僕が動かなくても勝手に動く人がいますからね。そちらに任せます。
お手柄だけいただくわけですか。そりゃまあ。
何とでも言ってください。犯人を挙げるのが第一義ですから。
しかしまあ、ほんにかないまへんな。
伝えましたよ。上の方針も含めてね。激高していましたから僕の思う通りに動いてくれるでしょうね。
そうやってうちのしゅうちゃんもこき使ったんですやろな。
そんなに高城先輩をこき使った覚えはないんだ。
Oh.
では行ってまいります。
So Reiji is gonna crack the case.
お留守番よろし
He's
くお願い
gonna
し
find
ます
some
ね。
kind of evidence. But obviously, things have. It's too late for a lot of people.
ああ、行ってらっしゃい。
Karen left the apartment. Mosky absently looked around his room. Lost track of how long it had been since he'd arrived. However, he did know he'd spent the whole day before cooped up in the apartment painting. Specifically, he was working on a sketch of the rock ptarmigan that he'd attempted to draw all those years back in Hitogata. Mosky let his memories guide his pencil across the paper. Occasionally, he'd go to the library to reference illustrations of rock ptarmigans in books, then draw those from memory once he returned. He never borrowed any of the books, though. For he believed the drawing would no longer depict the bird he saw on that day if he constantly referenced them. By this point, he'd redone the drawing more times than he could ever hope to count, filling his trash bin with a mountain of balled up paper. Luckily, Karen brought him new drawing paper practically every single day. Masuki couldn't thank her enough for that. Not once did she ever bring up Hinagami Pharmaceuticals or Hitogata with him either. All in all, it made the apartment quite the comfortable space. Which was funny, considering he'd never felt that way when he'd been living there just last year. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Masuki started to rise, then froze. Never had any acquaintances over before. As such, it was either a salesman or nothing good. Masuki quietly crept over to the door. Another knock resounded. Couldn't see outside, thus he had no idea how many people were there. Do we just wait for them to leave? However, it was then Masuki noticed the door had been left unlocked, which meant this mystery visitor would know he was home if he tried locking it now. I should at least pin the door down. The door opened. Masuki's hand was left, groping the empty air where the doorknob had been a second earlier.
やはりここだったか。
時坂さん。
Toji stepped into the apartment before Masuki could get another word in. Toji entered right after him and shut the door.
何なんですか？
いきなり従業員がいなくなれば探すのが筋だろうが。
Toji lightly prodded Masuki, driving him to sit back down.
それは。すみません。
Masuki sincerely apologized. Though his head hadn't been in a good place at the time, the fact remained that he'd left without telling anyone.
部屋を借り戻せるほど給料を出していた覚えはないんだが。
Toji surveyed the room.
それはそれで問題があると思うぞ。
雇ってから1ヶ月で失踪したやつに払う義理はない。とは本来いかないんだがね。
Toji shrugged.
この部屋を借りたのはひながみカレンだな。
だったらどうだと言うんですか？
Masuki didn't feel guilty about quitting his job. His only regret was that he hadn't informed Reiji.
お前、最近の新聞は見ているか？
Reiji rolled up one of the main newspapers that were protecting the floor from paint stains. They're all the ones Masuki had saved up when he previously lived here, each over a year old.
何かあったんですか？
お前がいなくなったのと前後して茅原由紀子が死んだ。
自殺と発表されている。鳥居小羽を殺害し、
そんなバカな。
バカなことさ。しかし真犯人が現れない以上、
それでなぜ自分のところに来たんですか？
お前も感づいているはずだぞ。一連の事件の犯人。お前の婚約者ばかりを狙い。
いや、ですが。
ひながみカレンはどこだ？
Masuki bit his lip.
5件すべての犯行時刻。ひながみカレンにアリバイはない。ひながみしずるに話を聞いたところ、彼女は巫女がいなくなった後、
さらに貴様にひながみ家を継がせたくない人物とすれば。
Karen had indeed told Masuki to forget about the Hinagamis and live however he pleased. Did that mean Toji was onto something?
ですが、時坂さんたちが言っていることは全て状況証拠でしょ？
その通りだ、マサキ。だから俺たちはここに来た。
自首ですって。カレンが否定したらそれでおしまいじゃないですか。
そうだな。お前が説得できなかったらそこまでだ。
In that case, we'll just have to kill her.
そうですか。わかりました。話すだけは話して。
頼んだぞ。
So Karen just comes home tonight like, ah, Nisa,
あ
so
い
good
つ
to
は
see
ど
you
うすると
again.
思う？
Toji turned to me once we left the
さ
apartment.
あな。この先はあいつに任せるつもりだよ。あれでもうちで1ヶ月探偵の真似事をやらせていたのだからな。
Though honestly, I sure as hell wasn't one to be preaching about that kind of shit. I mean, if I were a law-abiding citizen, then I'd have Masuki arrested too. However, I believe that he had what it took to corner Karen Hinagami.
ろくなことを考えていないな、貴様は。
その通りだよ。おそらく奴は判断をたがえない。そうすればあとは。
Will she turn herself in? Or... Ooh. Felt like I turned into the very thing I hated most. Makoto Rokushiki, the murder of my fiancée Yukiko. Karen returned at night.
ただいま。兄様？
Karen flipped the switch.
はい。
お前がみんなを殺
Karen's eyes
正
widened.
直に答えてくれ。お前がグリコやユカさんも殺したのか？
誰がそんなこと？
実を言うと事件を調べ回っている時からそんな気はしていたんだ。
Like when Yuka had been murdered in Hitogata, for example. Kieran had been staying at the Hinagami residence that night, so it would have been a cakewalk for her to lure Yuka out. I said the same thing, just saying. Though Masuki had also been aware that it would have been impossible for Nanako to do the same, I also said the same.
君は人を殺しすぎたんだ。
二人
And she's like, which two? Kieran thought it was worth even thinking. That sealed it for Masuki. Kieran realized her own blunder a moment too late.
無関係なのは茅原由紀子さんだけではなかった。
そうですか。確かに私は殺しすぎたようですね。
Kieran hung her head.
グリコ。
Masuki didn't answer. There was no chance in hell he'd give her the other name.
自首してくれな。
Masuki took Kieran's hand and tried to be as gentle with her as possible.
兄様の罪？
僕も人を殺しているから。復員してすぐさやさんを殺して逃げ出した。
兄様。
一緒に行こう。カレン。
私には。
Kieran shook off Masuki's grip.
カレン。
私には兄様を咎人にすることはできません。
Kieran rose to her feet.
ひな神の汚れをすべて受け止め浄化する。
カレン、お前。
私はずっと巫女になりたかったのです。
Kieran interrupted Masuki and spoke like she was reciting from ancient scriptures.
巫女はひな神に嫁ぎ子をなすもの。そのお役目が私に回ってきた時は本当に嬉しく思いました。ですが私は子がなせないと分かり、
Kieran clung to Masuki.
私は兄様を他の人に取られたくないし。
そんなことのために。
Something in Masuki started to snap. Oh, is he gonna kill her? Common sense, morals, and ethics that comprise the personality known as Aito Inagami, the providence that made him human, were shattering to pieces. He felt neither rage nor sorrow, just despair for all he had left.
兄様、私のものになってくだ。
Kieran drew her lips close to his. Masuki unconsciously turned his face away, toeing the edge of that word all the while. For if he accepted Kieran's proposition, then he truly would have nothing left.
兄様。
Good man, don't fuck your sister. Tears cascaded down Kieran's cheeks.
兄様。どうあっても
Damn,
私を受け入れてはくれないの
crazy
で
how
す
you
か。
should have led with that first. Crazy how you should have led with is there anything I can do to make you accept me first before you started going on a killing spree.
ダメなんだ。カレン。君を受け入れては。
Theirs was an abominable family founded upon incestuous marriage. Returning to their fold would only bring him further torment.
兄様。
Kieran swallowed a pill.
ご危険。
So she ends up popping the cyanide anyway. Kieran tumbled to the floor. Masuki caught her, but there was nothing he could do, for his heart had already drowned in the deepest pits of despair. Masuki kissed Kieran, his fractured mind unable to devise any other tribute to her. She tasted faintly of almonds. Game over. Oh no, there's more. Alright. I waited in my car on a road in Nogata.
どうする？
Doji asked that after exiting the car.
ひな神カレンが戻ってきてからしばらく経っている。
Lights were on in Masuki's apartment.
様子を見てきた方がいいな。
俺も行く。
I exited the car and hurried on over to the complex. There were no signs anyone had left the apartment. Yeah, he's gonna find Masuki kills himself too. As such, the two of them were definitely still inside.
激高したひな神カレンが。
おそらくそれはありえないだろう。今までだって単純に目的を果たすのであれば、
奴を生かしておくことが
昔からの友人や使用人を躊躇なく殺していることからは想像もつかないだろうがこれは俺の想像に過ぎないが彼女は兄に対して猛烈なパラノイアを抱いているのだろうな。
That's why she put him first and foremost and considered little else. As such, she was incapable of envisaging what would happen after she actually carried out her murders.
昔似たような妄執にとらわれた女がいた。目的のもの以外は見ようともしない。ああいう手合いは厄介だよ。
We arrived outside Masuki's apartment. However, I had no way of knowing what was going on inside.
静かだな。
Thought you made that comment after pressing your ear against the door.
まだ中にいるはずだが。
A bad feeling struck me like lightning.
開けるぞ。
The door was unlocked. Thus it only took a second to get inside.
さっき
Masuki was sitting in a corner of the apartment. He stared off into space, cradling an immobile Karen in his arms.
おい、まさき。
I raced over and slapped him in the face. He twitched and moaned. He's still alive. Checked on Karen next. Though she wasn't wounded, it was clear she'd passed away.
まさき、何があった？
Masuki did nothing but make indecipherable sounds. I drew my ear closer to make out what he was saying.
トシ、窓を開けてくれ。
Backed away right after the stench of almonds stung my nose.
ああ、何があった？
生産だ。おそらくひながみカレンが自決するのに使用したのだろう。あと病院にも連絡してくれ。
わかった。ここに電話は。
Toji left the apartment.
なんだってこんなことに。
Muskie had probably refused to go along with his sister's obsession. That means she'd chosen to die in his arms? No. She took his heart with her on a journey. Game over? There's game over. Alright, so we got one more bad ending, which is right at the end when we're giving evidence to Tori. One more bad ending. Yes, oh, evidence. What evidence do you have? I hate this. The evidence says clay doll. I have two of them labeled clay doll, you know? Making things very difficult for me. There's clay doll from Mayu Kamizono, but also there's clay doll from Mitsuki Itase. I guess the most recent clay doll. No, this will never work. What about the first clay doll? No, this will never work. Mosky held out a journal just as I was finding myself stumped. Okay, so if you're not smart enough to select the journal yourself, it leads to a bad ending, huh? Yes, of course, that's
ユ
the
キコさ
answer.
んは最近日記を書き残していたようです。
Yep, and here's something new. Alright. The sun was setting over the western mountains by the time I'd finished racing over to the White Lily Garden Hashioji.
ここで間違いないか。
That's Musky. That's where they grew up. Let's do this. Chapel's right this way. Chapel was as quiet as the bottom of the sea. Their figure was crouching on the floor.
ゆかり。
I froze when I registered the scene before me. Could have done any different, really. Yukiko was kissing Yukari on the lips. The latter, with a knife sheathed in her chest and blood trickling out her mouth. The sight seared in my eyes and rendered me speechless. All the blood drained from my head. Everything before me went blurry, almost like a tantalizing mirage in the desert. Leaving me screamed. Yukiko looked up after noticing us.
あら、いらっしゃったのですか?
Oh god, that fucking weirds me out to hear you talk like that. Yukari's head slumped at that moment. Her trachea would have to be bent like a rope around a pole for that angle to look even remotely natural.
ゆかりさん
Masuki darted right over to Yukari. He knocked Yukiko out of the way.
ゆかりさんゆかりさん
Masuki jostled the shell that had been Yukari over and over. We were too late. We predicted that she'd target Yukari. So why? Why couldn't we have gotten here sooner? Suddenly Yukiko turned her head toward me as she sat on the floor. If she says Nissan, we're killing her.
あら、兄さん。
Kill her,
そんな顔
kill
を
her,
なさって
kill her,
どうか
beat
な
her
さいま
ass,
した
beat her
か?
ass. Whap, whap, whap. 1, 2, 1, 2. Bap, 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 bap. Fuck her up, fuck her up. Whap, 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 whap. Rage fucking bop. That voice. Well, she curiously looked at me.
ゆかりを
Snap her fucking neck.
言うのか。
Like say go in for like a brotherly hug and then wrap your fucking hands around her head and just twist that shit. Resignation colored my voice. She wasn't Yukari. This was the girl who killed my sister. And yet, I couldn't hate her. I can. I'll do it. If you can't hate her, I will. Let me do it. I'll take all the hate for you, bud. Not for considering her circumstances. Fuck her circumstances. Fuck her circumstances. I don't give a fuck what her circumstances are. I can still hate the bitch.
兄さん、帰りましょう。
Yukiko took my hand. Hers was cold and trembling ever so slightly. Yukari was murdered, with Yukiko Kayahara arrested shortly thereafter as the culprit. However, a psychiatric examination determined that she was of unsound mind at the time of the crime, and thus not fully accountable for her actions. I knew that, of course. And honestly, I couldn't blame her myself. Even if I had, it wouldn't have made me feel any better. I don't know, it'd make me feel better. Fuck her up, you know? For I also bore some responsibility for Yukari's murder. I went to visit Yukiko. Why? In Kichiki Hospital after Yukari's funeral. Unlike Michiru, whose symptoms were relatively minor in comparison, Yukiko was in a full-blown isolation ward. That was where she'd been committed.
面会でしょうか。
ええ。茅原由紀子さんに。
こちらへどうぞ。
The nurse led me through the ward's
こ
halls.
ちらになります。
Eventually, she stopped in front of a door. She then produced a key and unlocked it for me.
どうぞ。
失礼します。
I went inside after taking a breath to calm myself first. Oh, God. Kill her. Kill her. Stomp her. Stomp her out. Words completely failed me for a good few moments. Yukiko was sitting there, haphazardly cutting her hair. Clumps of hair were splayed all over the bed.
あら、
Yukiko stopped trimming her split ends and looked up.
どうかなさいましたか、兄さん。
Kill her. She'd cut her hair to match Yukari's length. I knew she'd absorbed numerous people and acted their personalities out, but this was just...
やめてくれ。
couldn't bear to look at her. I wasn't Yukari. Of course I knew that. However, I couldn't look at her in spite of that. No, because of that. Yukiko Kayahara's obsession had absorbed Yukari and borne fruit.
おかしな兄さん。
Yukiko beamed at me.
髪が伸びていて。切ってみたんです。私はずっと短かったでしょ。
The girl before me scrutinized my face. She was completely in character as Yukari, to the point that she didn't even realize she was playing a part. I swear the original Yukiko Kayahara's personality gone.
もういい。君はそんなことしなくても。
君だなんて、そんな他人行儀にならなくてもいいと
Oh,
思い
I
ますよ。
do, and I know you're not her.
もう
I grasped Yukiko's shoulders and hung my head.
あ、そうそう兄さん。今日の晩ご飯は何にしますか？
And yet, despite my desperate pleas, she kept acting like Yukari.
君はゆかりじゃない。
That was all I could say. For there was no longer anything I could do to free her from this obsession.
元気を出してくださいね、兄さん。
Ew. Ew, don't fucking do that to me. Ew. Fuck. Ah, that gave me the worst goosebumps I could have asked for. Oh. Oh, whoa. Yeah, no, didn't like that very much. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's definitely gotta be probably the worst of the bad endings. Good God, yeah, that was uncomfortable to say the least. Alright. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this recording session. Good fucking God. But in the next recording session, we'll get to see the true ending. We'll get to see how the story's supposed to play out. And then we'll see some other endings while we're at it. But yeah, with that being said, it's either going to be a quick transition or a new recording session. But regardless, I'll see y'all in the next one. Until then, peace.